I think the last thing I'd like to ask you about, Dave, if I could, is hip impingement. So again, I think we see a couple different sides of it. To me, I see, you know, I think with the butterfly as a tool in the toolbox, and some of the players don't have hip internal rotation. I think also that they still equate it a bit with the splits and think if they get a wider splits, that will help them get a wider butterfly flare. So I think some goalies miss out on working on their mobility into hip internal rotation, which lets them get the flare, but also takes strain off their knee. So we also get some goalies that complain, hey, you know, when I try to do a wider flare, I get pain in my knee. How can I stretch my knee? You know, it's like, well, no, like you don't need to stretch your knee, you need to stretch your hips. But I look at it a little bit, you know, and then some of the older players that need to have surgery for hip impingement. And so I see a little bit the way, you know, I train some baseball pitchers too, and it's like, wow, what they do is outrageous. You know, how their body works, it's amazing. And so I think there is some element of survival of the fittest that to make it to Major League Baseball, you've just been built with a little bit of different anatomy that lets you do that successfully. Right. But I think also minor league baseball is trying to, you know, limit to some extent how much of that force is put on a player at a young age, so in terms of pitch count and things like that. With the goalie hip impingement, you know, we were talking a little bit beforehand that, you know, maybe some of it is due to the equipment as well. I'm just interested to hear your thoughts on hip impingement, and if you think it is on the rise, or we're just more aware of it, or what you see.
I think the butterfly style, I think it's here to stay. It just you protect the low middle portion of the net, and you force a shooter to beat you high to the corner, which under pressure is sometimes hard to do. But I think there's times where the butterfly is overused. And again, it's one of those, the old Quebec style, the drop and drape or blocking style. And again, it goes back to what we talked about before, where we want goalies to read and react more. So instead of dropping drape, you know, you might be a little bit more patient on your knees or whatever. But again, it comes down to training and flexibility, like we talked about, and then also equipment, because there's a point where sometimes equipment is used as a goal stopping technique rather than just a protection as well. And sometimes the knee rolls are a little padded to help with the butterfly, which again, I don't know the mechanics of it, how it affects the body or whatever, but you know, I think a lot of it comes down to you know, the training off ice as well. It's a technique that's here. I think if your body's trained properly, it's going to help the technique as well, and the wear and tear. But you know, I'm not sure if that's answering your question or not, but it's just one of those things where I think that, you know, again, everything is not just one aspect. There's everything that comes into play. You know, sometimes goalies, the younger kids, the equipment, the fitting of the equipment is too big. You know, whether it's the parents buying it to last a couple of years, or they think bigger is better. You know, it's one of those things. You see goalies in their top of their pads comes up to their crotch, and you know, that can't be good for you know, the biomechanics, or it can't be good for the body. So I think there's a lot of things that come into it, but definitely it's there is an issue with you know, with hips, and I think it's one of those things that sometimes we put a lot of pressure on things that maybe aren't there either. And you know, like I played for years, and my equipment was very basic, and you know, we did the butterfly, we did the skate saves and all those kind of things, and you know, my body wasn't really, you know, too bothered. We never really worked out that much either. So, you know, it's interesting. I think a lot of it's a technique too. You know, and again, maybe just kids are so dedicated to hockey that the athleticism or the benefits of other sports aren't being rewarded as well. So, you know, it's but yeah, it's everything's from the, what they say, the nipples to the knees. So it's right in that area. So, but I think a lot of it too is you know, maybe there's some deficiencies in the lower back or groin, or which you know, everything's connected, right? So maybe that just goes right to the hips.
Yeah, and I think that's a good point too. And you know, some again, I think that the education in terms of training is improving a lot. But I think of the kids that you know, they send me their programs. Hey, this is what I'm doing. What do you think? And it's all machine based, you know, and sitting down and doing the groin thing. And it's just like, wow, you know, yeah, because you're training those muscles in isolation, not training them as a functional chain the way you need to use it on the ice. So then, you know, it makes them strong. So maybe they can get into some of those positions, but they don't have the control. And, you know, and I think, yeah, that definitely makes them vulnerable.
I think a lot of people, you know, I notice in my business, and you probably do in yours, they try to reinvent the wheel, trying to make a name for themselves by creating this technique or this style that, you know, it doesn't really need to be. The game's been played for years, and it's just, again, it comes down to, you know, a lot of times how bad the athlete wants to do it, you know, and they find a way, and at the end of the day, stop the puck. Yeah. You know, and, you know, a good structure is good and very important, but at the end of the day, it's just, you know, a matter of getting your body in front of the puck and stopping it.
Yeah, and I think, you know, the consistency of it, exactly like you said, there's more than one way to stop a puck. There's more than one way to train, but, you know, pick how you're going to do it and do it consistently, and make sure, you know, pick the most efficient, effective way for you, and then do it consistently.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Well, I think that's it. That's been awesome. Thanks, Dave. I really appreciate you stopping by. So it's purehockeygoaltending.com if you want to learn a little more from Dave. But thanks very much for taking time out of your day. I super duper appreciate it. This is Maria from hockeytrainingpro.com and goalietrainingpro.com. I'll see you next time.